Hello, I am Ayush Sharma. I am Masters in Physics and I have more than 7 years of teaching experience. I'll be teaching you physics. So, the topic for today's study is magnetic flux, and it's a very important topic, especially to the in the part of electromagnetism. And to be very specific, it's very important. It forms the base of the chapter electromagnetic induction. So, before switching to the topic magnetic flux, we'll first have an idea what that flux means. That word flux, what this particular word mean in physics. So flux, basically flux means in physics, we have, first of all, we should know it, we have two major type of fields in physics, especially in electromagnetism, that is electric field and magnetic field. So flux, when we talk about flux is linked with a surface. So what we mean to say by flux is how many lines, that field lines, are crossing that surface. Basically, in that sense, we use flux in physics. Okay, so in electromagnetism, what we call a branch of physics, that is electromagnetism. It involves both electric field and magnetic field, their combination. So all in all, it's related to electricity and magnetism. So it's important for whole electromagnetism. And we have two types of flux over here. That one is electric flux, another is magnetic flux. So as I have told you the basic idea of flux, so we are leaving apart electric flux for now and will be focused on magnetic flux, and I'll be telling you how it forms the base of the chapter electromagnetic induction, as I have told you. So let us begin by the basic definition of magnetic flux. So if we define magnetic flux, it is the number of magnetic field lines that are crossing a particular surface that is being placed in the magnetic field. Okay, so what I'm trying to convey you is that, for example, if we take a surface like this, it's a plane surface placed in a vertical plane. Okay, suppose this is a table. We have a table here that's horizontal, obviously table. The plane of table is horizontal. And the plane I'm considering over here is vertical. Okay, in the sense that if I consider it as horizontal, that shaded one, so in reference of that horizontal, it's a vertical plane. So I'm drawing some lines, and that lines are magnetic field lines. So clearly it is visible there here that the lines are crossing it completely. Every line is crossing it, this surface, and I'm calling these lines as magnetic field lines. So basically the flux is calculated or defined as the how many magnetic field lines, these lines which I have drawn here, are crossing this surface. So it is very clear from the diagram shown here, maximum lines are crossing it. So the maximum flux is linked with the surface over here. And we are making the magnetic field here. So the flux would be magnetic flux. So that is the basic definition or the basic idea how we get what flux is. So how we denote it? We denote it by a symbol phi. It's been shown here phi. And to be very specific, we show magnetic flux as phi b. And why so? Why we use a subscript b, even if we would have shown it only by phi? So that much of specification is needed due to the reason, as I told you earlier, we have two type of flux, that is electric flux also. So for electric flux, we usually use phi with a subscript e. And for the magnetic flux part, we use that phi symbol, but with the subscript B. Okay, so that's why, to be very specific, we'll use phi B, or we can have phi also, because it will be understood from the situation or the problem for which type of field we are dealing with. So it's very obvious, if we are dealing with a magnetic field, we'll be calculating the magnetic flux. Okay, then we'll talk about it in more mathematical sense now. So it's a scalar quantity. Okay, we don't need any direction to specify it. It's a scalar quantity. SI unit is Weber. Okay, well, we are noting here that I have written this Weber unit with W in small letter, not in capital one. So that is a convention in physics. Whenever we define a unit in the name of a scientist, that's what it is defined over here. Weber was a scientist. So we have defined it, we have written it with a small w. Okay, so its SI unit is Weber, or in other sense, we can say it as Tesla meter square. Why so? Tesla meter square, I'll be explaining you. Also, you can note here that Tesla, for Tesla, we have written T small. Again, the same concept. Tesla was also a scientist. So we have written Tesla. Okay, never write Tesla as this. Okay, that's not acceptable as a unit. Tesla was the name of a scientist. Okay, we'll move forward to the dimension. ML2 T minus 2 A minus 1. Okay, ML2 T minus 2 A minus 1. So how these dimensions are derived, we'll see it after we have the formula for the flux. So we'll move to the next slide to have the formula. Okay, first of all, before formula, let us have an comparative idea of three figures in which we'll be having the maximum flux related to a field. Suppose I have drawn three surfaces, first, second, and third, and the magnetic field lines are passing through the surfaces. In first surface, the magnetic field lines, this in blue is magnetic field lines. Okay, they're crossing it completely. So it's very clear from here, they are crossing it completely. That means maximum flux is linked with the surface over here. Okay, they are cutting it, basically crossing it. But if we go to the second part, no lines are crossing the surface, all are just touching them tangentially. So no field lines are crossing them. That does mean no flux is linked with the surface. Obviously, they are touching the surface and moving tangentially. No lines are cutting this surface in the second case. That is why I have written phi b as zero flux and phi a as maximum flux. And now comes the third situation, phi c. It's a condition that is in between them. In between them, what does that mean? That means it's the lines are neither tangential here, okay, nor normal here. They are in between, making a certain angle with the plane. So if we arrange the flux linked with all the three surface in a decreasing order, so it's very clear from the figure, phi a would be maximum and phi b would be 0, and in between them comes phi c. So phi is maximum, phi b is minimum, and in between them comes phi c. Okay, so you'll be getting a basic idea from the diagrammatical approach what that magnetic flux means from diagram, and how to do comparative study of magnetic flux with different surfaces. Now we'll get into the formula, mathematical formula of this. So for basic, if we are considering a surface like this, and the magnetic flux and the magnetic field is constant throughout the surface, B is constant. So the basic formula for the magnetic flux would be B dot A. B is a vector, magnetic field vector. A is also a vector. So let us define A. Is that A is area? No. Okay, area is, this is not area. This A is area vector. And what is that area vector? Area vector is simply a normal to the surface. Suppose this is a surface, we draw an area vector here. So what is area vector? It has a dimension of the area of the surface and its direction would be perpendicular to the surface. So we are dotting B dot A with area vector. Okay. Now to expand it, we can write it as dA cos theta. But if over a surface, suppose we have a curved surface like this, three-dimensional curved surface, suppose, and we are having some value of B here, some another value of B here, some another value of B here. That means B is not constant over the whole surface. Okay, in the right part of the screen. So in that case, magnetic flux is defined as integral of B dot dA. Okay, that's the basic mathematics, how we write it. Okay, getting the point. Now, as we know, phi is BA cos theta, now we can arrive easily on the dimensions of flux from this formula. Okay, now we will derive what are the dimension of phi from this formula. Okay, so for dimension analysis, we can write phi for the dimension of phi. They can be written as dimension of B into dimensions of A, and A possesses the dimensions of area. Okay, and B, how can we write B for dimension analysis? It's QBB sine theta. So for dimension, we could write this as, so for dimension of B, we can write it as dimensions of force divided by dimensions of charge multiplied by dimensions of velocity. So dimensions of B are force. Force is mass times acceleration, as you know. So mass is m, acceleration meter per second square. So in that sense, we can write it as m1 l1 t2 minus 2. Q is charge, a times t, so a1 t1. And for velocity, we can write as lt minus 1. Okay. So for the dimension of B, we are getting it as L is getting cancelled. Okay. T1 t minus 1. So dimensions of B are coming out to be m1 t minus 2 a minus 1. And if we multiply, basically what is our ultimate goal here? To find the dimension of phi, not B. So we have to multiply the dimension of B with A. A means L square. So simply the dimensions would be m1 L2 t minus 2 and a minus 1. Okay, as we have seen earlier, these are the dimensions. These are the dimension m1 L2 t minus 2 and a minus 1. So that's how we arrive at dimensions. So that's the basic formula of B dot A for magnetic flux in the constant case and in variable case. So we have now we'll have a deep understanding of what A exactly mean here. Does it mean the whole area, or does it mean something else specifically in the case of magnetic field? So let us look at that. Okay, so what does A mean here? Look at this right part. A means area inside the magnetic field. Okay, suppose we have this circle and we have magnetic field only in only half area, and other half area of the circle doesn't possess magnetic field in it. So when we calculate its flux, suppose magnetic field is constant and its value is B. So will we write B into pi r square? No, we will not write this because A is not complete here. A is basically means area inside the magnetic field. So that would be that half circle. So we would write B times pi r square by 2. Okay. So be very careful while using the formula. Okay. That's why I'm telling you is not the total surface area, rather it is the area which is inside the magnetic field only. And what about theta? Is it, suppose that's a surface placed in magnetic field. So we have magnetic field here. B. So is the angle 90 degree? No, not at all. Draw an area vector over here. Now the angle comes out to be 0 degree. So measure angle always with area vector. That's why we draw the vector. If we measure the angle with the surface, then what is the use of drawing an area vector over here? Remember that. Okay, is phi always positive? It is like that. It's a scalar quantity, so it will be positive always. No, it's not like that. If you go to the basic formula only, it's BA cos theta. Okay, magnitude of B is always positive. Magnitude of area is always positive. But it's not like that. Cos theta will always be positive. Look at the cycle of cos theta first of all. Okay, it is this. So it is positive for some time, negative, then positive, and then it keeps on going. Okay. So that's why cos theta is positive and negative, or following that phi will be positive and negative, and it could be 0 also. So we know that when theta is less than 90 degree, in case of cos theta, it is positive. So when theta is less than 90 degree, that means if theta is acute, then flux is positive, and theta is obtuse, then flux is negative, and theta is 90, then the flux is 0. Okay. If I draw it diagrammatically, what does that mean? That means it is area vector here, and we have magnetic field here. Okay. Now this angle is theta, acute. Then we'll be having a positive flux linked with that surface. Okay. Let us take an example. Suppose this is area vector, and we have magnetic field like this. So the angle should be measured between the B vector and the A vector, as you know. So theta is obtuse in the sense greater than 90 degree. So we'll be having a negative flux linked with the surface. Now look at the third example of 0 flux. This is area vector, and this is magnetic field. So the angle between them is, okay, let us change magnetic field. It's not magnetic field. If it is magnetic field and on the right side is area vector, the angle is 90 degree. So in that case, 0 flux would be linked with the surface. Okay. Now, why I was saying that it is very important for whole electromagnetism and specifically for electromagnetic induction. So first of all, we'll have a basic definition of what is electromagnetic induction. EMI, I'm writing it in short, EMI. That means electromagnetic induction. Okay, to be very short, if I tell you very simply what is electromagnetic induction. So electromagnetic induction is generating electricity without using an external source like battery. Suppose we have a circuit and we change flux, magnetic flux linked with that circuit, then an EMF is induced on it. That's called electromagnetic induction. Okay, the name implies itself, induction. So what is being inducted? If the circuit is not closed, then EMF is inducted, and the circuit is closed, then along with EMF, a current would be induced. So that is how EMI is. And now, why I was saying it's the base, magnetic flux is the base for EMI, because ultimately the definition comes whenever you change the magnetic flux linked with the coil, then an EMF or a current is induced. Basically, to induce current or EMF in a circuit, you have to change the magnetic flux. And for changing the magnetic flux, first of all, you should know what is magnetic flux. So that's why I said that it makes the whole base of the chapter of EMI. Okay, so that's it for today. Hope you learned the lecture. That's it for today. Okay.